Begin the Gemara towards the bottom of Ein Chesed with base, 3 lines from the bottom. We're in the middle of the story where the Gemara is explaining the source of why David HaMelech was geyser on the Nesinim. According to Rashi, he was geyser on them that they should be usher to marry into Klal Yisrael. What did he see in them that he was geyser? These will get him from the Gevinim, which is from the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael, from Amayri. So why was he geyser in them? So the story began with the fact that there was a hunger in Eretz Yisrael for 3 years, and David HaMelech was trying to figure out what's the reason for the hunger. Finally, he was told from the Urim V'Tumim that the reason for the hunger is 2 things. Number 1, Shaul HaMelech was not eulogized properly when he passed away. And number 2, the Gevinim, they were always getting their food and all of their parnasa from a city of Kainim that they were serving. Shaul HaMelech came and killed all the Kainim of that city because they rebelled against him, or he suspected them of rebelling against him. And now these Gevinim were out of any parnasa. They had no food, nothing. So therefore it's considered as if he killed these Gevinim. And therefore the Eibusher was makbid him. That was the reason for the hunger. Those are the 2 reasons that the pasuk says here. They were Megar in the time of Moshe, correct. The Gemara is going to soon discuss from Moshe. We'll see, we'll get to that. But now the Gemara asks a question. The Gemara, Ketova el Shal Shal Nisbat Kaloche. These 2 things that the Eibusher is bringing a hunger for seem to be sort of a contradiction. On one hand, the Eibusher is demanding the honor of Shaul, the fact that Shaul was not eulogized properly, and at the same time, v'ketova ala shahemis hagevainim. On the other hand, the Eibusher is also demanding that, and this is sort of a punishment for what Shaul did, that he brought death because the Gevainim did not have any parnasa. So how could there be 2 opposites here? And says the Gemara yes, this could be 2 things, 2 opposites at the same time. Reish Lakish says, we learn from a pasuk, it says, Bakshu es Hashem kol am ve'aretz, all the humble ones in the land seek out Hashem, Hashem mishpatei palu. The simple pshat of the pasuk is, mishpatei palu, they fulfill his mishpatim, his mitzvahs. But the Gemara here dashens that mishpatei and palu are 2 opposites. Ba'asher mishpatei, in the place and in the time where the Eibusher judges, Sham Palu, over there he also remembers the good that a person does when the Eibusher is judging a person, and therefore he's punishing him for what was not good. So the Eibusher looks at a person's actions and he sees the good deeds as well, and therefore he sees both at the same time. And that's over here regarding Shaul HaMelech as well. Okay, so now continuing the story. So what happened? Amad David, so David HaMelech said as follows. So what should we do now to rectify these 2 problems here? So Shaul nafkelo treisi yachishate. Shaul HaMelech passed away more than 12 months before this. Rashi says it was actually close to 3 years before this. So therefore, that we can't do anything about anymore. It's not customary to give a hesped, to eulogize someone more than 12 months after he passed away, because 12 months is the time for nichem avelim, and it's a time you give a hesped. But past that, we can't do it anymore. So that we can't do anything about. Nesinim, but regarding the Nesinim, that they were very upset about the fact that their parnasa was taken away from the city of Kainim. So what should we do now? Nikrinu, let's summon them. V'nefaisinu, and let's appease them. So it says in the pasuk, Vayikra Melech LaGevainim, he called the Gevainim, Vayemer Aleim, and he said to them, Ma esalachem, what should I do for you? B'ma achape, how could I appease you? U'barchas nachlas Hashem, and you should bench the inheritance of the Eibusher. So he wanted that the hunger should stop. The Gevainim responded, Ein lanu kesef v'zav m'shal. We're not looking for gold or silver to be paid back from the house of Shaul, v'im beiser, with the people from his house. Vein lanu ish v'goyim. We also don't demand anything from anyone else, from any person in Klal Yisrael, because they did nothing wrong to us. But what do we want? Yutan lanu shiva anashim mibanav. You give us 7 people from the house of Shaul, v'hikanum l'Hashem v'goyim, and we want to take revenge, and we'll hang them for the Eibusher's sake. That's what they wanted. That was their revenge that they were demanding. So what happened? Mephayis, David HaMelech tried to appease them. He didn't want them to go and do this. So he tried to appease them, offer them money, offer them whatever they wanted. They did not get appeased by this. They demanded that they should be allowed to go and take 7 of the descendants of Shaul HaMelech and to kill them as revenge. So Amar, when David HaMelech saw this, David said, Shloisha simanim yashbum bezu. The Yidden, this nation, has 3 different signs in their nature. Harachmanim, Yidden are merciful, bashful, and also do acts of goodness and kindness. Rachmanim, the Yidden are Rachmanim, the pasuk says, Eibusher gives Yidden the kayach of Rachmanis. Baishanim, the chsiv, bavuti, rasi al pnechem. Yerasi al pnechem, the Gemara's teaching here means that Yidden have a bashfulness. And also, Goim lechasadim, the chsiv, lemana shi yitzav es bonav es beisev v'goimer, that Avram Avinu taught and educated his children and his household, and the pasuk there continues, last is stako mishpat, that they do tzedakah. So therefore he said, Kol sheyesh bo shloshi simanim alalu, anyone that has these three signs of Rachmana Baishanim and Goyim L'chasadim, royally dabik bumizu, so he could come and connect to the Yidden, to this nation. So therefore David HaMelech was geyser here on the Gevainim, because the Gevainim had no Rachmanis. They were ready to go on for their revenge to kill the children from Shaul. So therefore he said, this is the reason he was geyser, that they should not be able to have any connection to Klal Yisrael. There's a long sikha from the Rebbe here on this piece of Gemara. In the simple pshat of the Gemara, it seems like that they were missing one of the midas. They were missing Rachmanim, and that's why they can't connect to Klal Yisrael. But the Rambam says that only someone that doesn't have any three of these midas, Rachmanim, Baishanim, and Goyim L'chasadim, then he should not marry into Klal Yisrael. And the Rebbe says that's the pshat in the Gemara here as well. And the way the Rebbe teaches it is that the Gemara uses the term simonim. Simonim means it's a sign that he really has that essence of what a Yid is supposed to have. And Pashtus, you learn the Gemara, it looks like Rachmanim, Baishanim, and Goyim L'chasadim are three separate things. But in the pshat in the Gemara here, what that means is Rachmanim and Baishanim and Goyim L'chasadim, one leads to the other. If you have Rachmanis, so then you're bashful. And if you're bashful, so then you're open to doing chesed to other people. Or actually, the Rambam brings busha first. The Rambam says a person that is a baishan, so the busha, which shows on humility brings to be a rachman, to have rachmanis on people, and if you have rachmanis, you do chesed. So these three are connected, and they show, the source of all three shows on a certain level of bittul that a yid has. So therefore, only someone that doesn't have all three together, that shows he doesn't have that nature that a yid has, so he can't connect, he can't marry into Klal Yisrael. There's more. This is a sikh in Chelik Lamed Parshas Vayera. The Rebbe explains this parichas. So let's continue the story. So what happened now? Vayikach HaMelech. So then David HaMelech went and he wanted to appease them. So he went and took as Shnei Bnei Ritzpah Basaya Ashiyolda L'Shal. So he took two children from Ritzpah, which was a daughter of Aya, which was married to Shaul. Who are they? Es Armoni ves Mipibaishes, these two children. Ves Chameshes b'nei Michal Bashal, and 5 children of Michal married to Shaul. Asher Yolda la Adriel ben Barzilai, her husband was Adriel ben Barzilai, Amacholti. So he had these 7 descendants of Shaul, and these are the ones that he gave over to them to take revenge. So the Gemara asks, Maishnahani, why these descendants? Amar Rav Huna, so Rav Huna said, Havirum lefnei Aaron. He brought these children in front of the Aaron. If the Aaron took him, meaning that they stood in front of the Aaron and the Aaron held them back, they sort of stopped, they couldn't walk further. So Lemisa, he knew that that's a sign that they deserve to die. If the Aaron did not stop them from walking further, so then he knew that they have to live. That's why it was these ones that he took. So apparently the point is that they themselves were Chayiv Misa. You see, the Aaron showed that these people were actually Chayiv Misa. Masav Rav Chana Bar Katina. Rav Chana Bar Katina asks, the pasuk there says, "Vayachmal HaMelech al Mipi Baishes ben Yohanesim ben Shaul," that the king David HaMelech had Rachmanis al Mipi Baishes. So what happened? He had Rachmanis on him that he in the end did not get killed. How? Shaloi Aviroi. He did not bring him to pass in front of the Aaron to see if he's Chayiv Misa or not. So the Gemara asks, "V'chimasi ponim yesh bedavar." Is there some kind of a masiponim that he has some kind of a favoritism over here, that this mipi baishes, he's not going to allow him to come to see if he's chayiv misa or not? Why did he do this? So the Gemara answers, Ella, what happened was, she'avira v'kolta, he actually brought mipi baishes in front of the Aaron, and the Aaron stopped him, and really he was chayiv misa, but ubikash olav rachmim upalte. But then David HaMelech davened for him, and he got released. And he was able to walk further, so then he was saved from being killed. The Gemara still asks, is there still a favoritism here? Once the Aaron showed that he's Chayiv Misa, so why is David HaMelech davening for him to be saved? There's going to have to be another person, another descendant from Shaul HaMelech that's going to have to take his place, so why is he davening for him after the Aaron already showed that he's Chayiv Misa? That he brought him to go and stand in front of the Aaron, and David HaMelech davened for him that the Aaron should not stop him, and therefore he was not Chayiv Misa in the first place. But now the Gemara asks on this whole thing, How does David HaMelech do such a thing? He's taking the descendants of Shaul and giving them over to the Gevainim to take revenge. But v'haksiv, the pasuk says, La yumsu avasal banim v'gaimer, that the parents don't have to die for the fathers. Again, the children, that is. It says, the pasuk begins that the parents don't die for the sins of the children. And what's relevant over here is the continuation of the pasuk that the children don't have to die for the sins of the father. So why would the descendants of Shaul HaMelech have to die because of an aveda that their father or their grandfather Shaul HaMelech did when he killed the whole city of the Kainim that brought this tsar to the Gevainim? So he answered and said, it's better that a letter of Torah should be uprooted. It's not only a letter. The Mefarshim say it's really this whole pasuk over here of La Yumsu, that this pasuk is uprooted. And the Eibish's name should not be desecrated in public. The Gevainim are going to go around and saying, look what Shaul HaMelech did, and we're not even allowed to take revenge of this. So because of this, David HaMelech uprooted what it says in the Torah that the children should not have to suffer because of the father. So the Mefarshim really say that it's not really uprooting a pasuk in the Torah. It looks like you're uprooting a pasuk in the Torah because really a melech has the right to be mechayiv misa to whoever he wants if he sees that they deserve misa. And over here the Arain showed that these individuals deserved misa in their own right. Elamai, it looked like that there's a pasuk in the Torah being uprooted. So the Gemara is saying you could do this even though it looks like a pasuk is being uprooted in order not to be mechal the Eibish's name b'fei Hesed, that they're going to say that we're not even allowed to take revenge. Then what happened? Vatikach Ritzpa Bas Aya Esasak. Ritzpa Bas Aya, so this was the mother of some of these that were killed here, and they were hung actually. So she took a sack, she took a cloth, and V'tateu La Latzur, she spread it over a rock, and she spread it over them. Mitchilas Katzir Ad Nitach Mayim Aleim and Hashemayim. From the beginning of the harvest season, which is in Nisan time, and she left it hanging over them. They remained hanging on the tree like this for the entire summer until the time that it started raining. And so in order to protect these bodies, that the birds should not come and eat from them, and the animals should not come and eat from them. So in other words, they were hanging there until it started raining. Once it started raining, they knew that the hunger is over, and the Yidden were forgiven, and they were forgiven for this. But the Gemara asks, how did they leave these bodies hanging there for all this time? That you're not allowed to, even when you chayv someone misa bezdin, and then he's hung, but you can't leave him hanging overnight on a tree. So how did they leave them for this entire time here? Again, a similar thing we said before. It's better to uproot a letter from the Torah, and this pasuk here of Leisalin, and to sanctify the Eibish's name publicly. People that passed by there and they saw these 7 bodies hanging, and they would say, who are these? And they would answer, they're the descendants of the king of Shaul HaMelech. Also, what do they do? They are really their grandfather, Shaul HaMelech. He went and did something that harmed the Gevainim, which were Geidim Grudim. This lashon of Geidim Grudim means because the Gevainim were Geidim, but they weren't really sincere Geidim. They were Geidim only because they wanted to save their lives, so they're called Geidim Grudim. So because their grandfather did something to harm Geidim Grudim, therefore this is the revenge that was done to them. And so Amru, they said about this, in that time period, people that heard this and saw this, it created a big Kiddush Hashem, that this is what Klal Yisrael does. And they said, there's no other nation that it's befitting to connect to it like this nation. If when it comes to B'nai Malachim, descendants of kings, and because of what was done, that he killed the Naiv Ir Kainim, and it brought pain to the Gevainim, and therefore this is the revenge that's taken. So B'nai Adyaita Salachas Kama V'Kama. If it would be just simple people, for sure, they would even do more, or they would do just as much to take revenge. Uma Geidim Grudim Kach. If, when Geidim Grudim were hurt, so this is the kind of revenge that they take. As Yisrael, Alachas Kama V'Kama, most definitely, if anyone amongst the Yidden themselves would be harmed, for sure they would take this kind of revenge. So this was the Kiddush Hashem that came out. And Miyad, so right away then, Nitaisval Yisrael, Mei V'Chamishim Elef. There were 150,000 Geidim that were added to Klal Yisrael. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Vayilu Shloim Shivim Elef Noisi Sabal. He had 70,000 men that were helping him carry things. Shmeinim Elef Chaytzev Bahar, and 80,000 workers that were carving out in the mountain. So who were these? 70,000 and 80,000. These were Geidim. Fragt the Gemara, how do you know they were Gedim? V'dilmi Yisrael havu. Maybe these were Yiddish workers. Says the Gemara, Lo Yisal Kedaitach. No, you can't think it were Yiddish workers. The Chsivim b'bnei Yisrael and Asna Shloime Eved. Shloime Melech did not use Yidden as his slaves. Fragt the Gemara, but how do you know they were Gedim? V'dilma Dugze Ba'alma. Maybe they were just hired workers, Goyim. Ella, you're right, the Gemara says from this pasuk there's no raya. Mehacha, there's a different pasuk in Divrei Yamim where it says, Vayisap Shloime Kol HaNoshim. He counted all the men, HaGedim, the Gedim that there were, Shabbat Yisrael. So here it clearly says that they were Gedim. Vayimtza, and he found Mei v'chamishim elef, there were 150,000 Gedim. Vayas mehem shivim elef noisisabel shmeinim elef chaytzev bahar, and these were the people that we mentioned before, slaves, that they helped him in the work that was done. This is the conclusion of the story. So here we see that David HaMelech is the one that was geyser on these Nesinim because of their achzarius, that they did not want to accept any appeasement and they wanted to only take revenge in this way. So he said, they're not Rachmanim, they're not Baishanim, so he did not accept them into Klal Yisrael. So was it the Huh? At the same time, though, David HaMelech allowed them to take Nekama because apparently he felt like that this is necessary for the Kapara, because there was a big Chilul Hashem for what Shaul HaMelech did, and because of this he had to allow them to take Nekama. And as we see, the Aron show that these people were Chayiv Misa. So, but on the other hand, though, mitzad them, they should have accepted another kind of appeasement, and this shows on their bad nature, and they don't belong in Klal Yisrael. But now the Gemara asks on the whole thing itself. Fragt the Gemara, is it really David HaMelech the one that decreed that they should not enter into Klal Yisrael? Unisinim, David, Gazer Aleim. Is it David that was Gazer upon them? Moshe Gazer Aleim. Moshe Rabbeinu was already Gazer on them that they should not enter into Klal Yisrael. The Chsiv, it says, Mechayte v'tzechat shoev mimecha. In Parshas Nitzavim, when it says that they're the wood choppers and water carriers, who is this? This was the Nesinim. Those Nesinim that came were Megayan in the time of Moshe, and Moshe Rabbeinu made them wood choppers and water carriers. And why? Because he didn't want them to marry into Klal Yisrael. And it says the Gemara, Moshe Gazar lahu dara. Moshe only decreed upon them for that generation. David Gazar l'kuli dara. David was Gazer for all later generations as well. Fragt the Gemara, but even after Moshe, we still find Vakata Yeshua Gazer alayu. We find that Yeshua was Gazer on them. He made them to be workers, wood choppers, water carriers for what? To work for the Mizbeach, for the Beis HaMikdash. So he also already was Gazer upon them. And says the Gemara, Yeshua, Gazer Bezman Beis HaMikdash Kayim. The Gzeir of Yeshua was only to work for the Beis HaMikdash. So that's only when the Beis HaMikdash is standing. It says in the pasuk, LeMizbeach Hashem. David Gazer Bezman Shein Beis HaMikdash Kayim. David HaMelech says that this Gzeira on these Nesinim should be for all future generations, even when the Beis HaMikdash is not standing. Now, just to mention again what I mentioned before when we learned the previous Amud, that the Pshat I'm saying here is Rashi's Pshat. Rashi is saying the whole discussion in the Gemara regarding the Gzeira of David or Moshe or Yeshua is the Gzeira that they should be also to marry into Klal Yisrael. Taisus is a long Taisus here, and then he brings from Rabbeinu Tam, and he says that no, that's not what the Gemara is discussing. That really Minat Torah, they're not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael because of the lav of Lo Tischaten, and that lav of Lo Tischaten refers to the 7 nations even after their Megayer. But here the Gemara is discussing the Gzeira that they should be slaves. And the question is, who is the one that's Geyser upon them that they should be slaves, that everyone should know that you're not allowed to marry them? That's Taisus' Pshat. But now the Gemara says what happened later on, after the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash, Bimei Rebbe, in the times of Rebbe, which is many years after the Churban, Bikshu Lahata Nesinim, they wanted to be matter, these Nesinim, to marry into Klal Yisrael. Amalehem, so Rebbe said, Chalkeinu Nater, our portion we could be matter, that they were made avodim, and because they were avodim, so that's how they asked them to marry into Klal Yisrael. So our portion we could be matter. And Rashi here says a bezdin has the koyach to free avodim, hefker bezdin hefker, and then they'll be able to marry into Klal Yisrael. But chelik mizbeach b'miyater. But this that they are owned to be workers for the Beis HaMikdash, for the mizbeach, nobody could be matter that. Yeshua made them workers for the Beis HaMikdash. That's not ours to be matter. So therefore, they don't want to be matter them. But the Gemara says, what the Rabbi said is arguing what Rav Chia bar Abba said. The chelik of the slavery that they wore for the Yidden, that is always going to be Aser. Chelik Mizbeach, but the portion that they were workers for the Mizbeach, Bezman shebeis hamikdash kayam, Aser. When the Beis HaMikdash is standing, that's Aser. And Beis HaMikdash kayam shari. But if the Beis HaMikdash is not standing, so automatically, if the Beis HaMikdash is not standing, that part of their avdus is gone. So therefore, that you don't have to be mater b'chlal. It's only the chelik of the Eidah that would remain forever. So if you want to be mater it, so that you could be mater it, and therefore you could be mater these nesinim. Huh?
Only half of them there.
What do you mean half? There's two portions to there's the avdus they have to Klal Yisrael, and there's the avdus that they have to the Mizbeach. The avdus to the Mizbeach is off automatically at the time of the Churban, and the avdus to Klal Yisrael, that you can be matter. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Omer Rabbi Yeshua said, Shamaiti, I heard, Asris, a person, a man that can't have any children, Chaylitz, so he can do Chalitza. We're going back a little bit over here into Masechta Yevamos. So Asris can do Chalitza, and V'chayltzin le'ishtoi. And also Asris that was married, and he passed away without children, so Chalitza is done for his wife as well. That's one thing I heard from my teachers. But I also heard V'asris loy chaylitz, that Asris can't do Chalitza, and V'loy chayltzin le'ishtoi, and you don't do Chalitza for his wife. Ve'eni lefarish, and I'm not sure how to explain this. When do you do Chalitza and when do you not do Chalitza? Rabbi Akiva said, Ani afarish. I'll explain. Sris Adam, if it's a person that can't have children, but this is something that happened by the person himself, that he got injured and somehow, so then Chaylitz v'chayltzin le'ishtoi. So then both he could do Chalitza, and also for his wife Chalitza would be done. Why? The very fact that he was once able to have children, so that's the reason why he's in the parsha of Chalitza. Sris Chama, however, if it's a Sris Chama, meaning that from the time of birth he couldn't have any children, so then not he could do Chalitza, and not Chalitza has to be done for his wife. He was never able to B'chlal have children. So Rashi explains that this is all based on what it says, that what's the reason for the mitzvah of Yibum or Chalitza? It's all in order not that your brother that passed away without children, so now you should marry his wife and give birth to a child to continue his name. But if you're a sris and you can't have any children, or you were a sris married to this wife and you never were able to have children, so that doesn't apply. But if you had a shasa kosher, if you were a person that could have had children, then later you got injured and now you can't have children, so then this mitzvah of Yibum and Chalitza does apply. Rabbi Eliezer answered and said that it's the exact opposite. Loiki, it's not so. El sris chama, if it's a sris chama, which means sris chama is min hashamayim, that not an injury that happened b'dei yadam, but min hashamayim, that this person can't have any children. Chaylitz v'chayltzin le'ishtoi. So he could do chalitza, and this chalitza done for his wife. Why? Because a sris chama could be healed. So obviously we're talking about such a kind of a sris chama that he has the evarim in his body that are necessary to have children. But he still is not well, but he could be healed and will be able to have children. But, so therefore, just a second, Sris Adam, a Sris Adam, which happens through an injury, and now the Evarim that he needs to have children, and he's not able to have children again, and he can't be healed, so there's no Chalitza that he can do, and there's no Chalitza for his wife either, because he can't be healed at all. Sagt the Gemara, hey, Mishnah that is, hey, Rabbi Shua ben Beseir al ben Megusas. Rabbi Shua ben Beseir said about ben Megusas, a name of a person. Shahayi b'Yerushalayim. He was living in Yerushalayim, and he was a Sris Adam, v'Yibum esishtoi. And they did Yibum for his wife. L'kayim divrei Rabbi Akiva. So this fulfills, like Rabbi Akiva's opinion, that if it's a Sris, a person that once had a Shas HaKosher, you can do Yibum or Chalitza for him. Sagt die Gemara, Mishnah weiter, Hasris. Huh?
Sris Adam, the Ishti also is a Sris?
No. Sris Adam.
So what is the Ishti shoulder?
Because if the person himself was married to a wife and he himself was never able to have children, then there's no mitzvah of Yibum b'chlal. The whole mitzvah of Yibum is only for a person that could have had children, but he didn't. So then, but if he never was able to have children, there's no such a mitzvah. Hasris, the Mishnah repeats this halacha again. Hasris loy chaylitz v'loy miyabim. Hasris, there's no chalitza. He doesn't do any chalitza and he doesn't do any yibum as well. The Gemara will explain later why the Mishnah repeats this halacha again. And then v'chein ailenis, a woman that's infertile, she can't have any children. Loy chayletzes v'loy misyabemes. There's no chalitza for her and there's no yibum for her either. Now the Mishnah continues. Hasris shechalatz liyivimtoi. So asris, in a case when there's no Yibum or Chalitza for a Sris, whether Rabbi Akiva's opinion, whether Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, the two opinions we had before, but a Sris where there's no mitzvah of Yibum or Chalitza, and the Yabam went ahead and did Chalitza anyways, le pasla. He did not pasler to a kain. A Chalutza becomes pasla to a kain. But over here, this Chalitza is nothing, because there is no Chalitza, so it doesn't pasler. Ba'ala pasla. But if he was bayil her, he went and was miyabim her, and he wasn't supposed to, he passled her now to a kayin. Why? This is a bilas nus. What happens to your brother's wife when there's no mitzvah of yibum? That's a kares, eishes achiv. Your brother's wife. So therefore you now had a relation of a issa kares, and that passels her to a kayin. V'chein island is similar, the same halacha by an island is. One of the brothers went and did chalitza for her. Loi paslua, they did not passel her because the chalitza did not take effect at all. But ba'alua, if they were ba'al her, since there's no mitzvah of yibum, her paslua, mipnei shebilas, a bilas nus, it's a bilas nus, so it passels her. Okay, now going back to the beginning of the Mishnah, the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. What did Rabbi Akiva say? That when you have a sris adam, if this person was born healthy, but then later he was injured and he became a sris, so then what's the halacha that you can do chalitza? Frek the Gemara, Mechdi, let's see. Shamina la Rabbi Akiva, we know we had before. What is Rabbi Akiva's opinion? The Amari says, Chayave lavin ke chayave krisis damu. That if you have an erve, and the isser of this erve is only a lav, it's the same like an erve which is a chiyav kares. And what's the halacha when you have an erve of a chiyav kares? V'chayve krisis lav b'nei chalitza v'yibum ninu. When this woman, there's a chiyav kares for her, so then there's no mitzvah of yibum or chalitza. And therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, if there's an isser of a lav, there's no mitzvah of yibum and chalitza either, just like a chiyav kares. So what's the Gemara's question? A sris adam, even though he was once able to have children before, but a sris falls under the category of a petzua daka and a krus shavcha, which we learned in the Gemara before. What's the halacha of a petzua daka and krus shavcha? A person that can't have any children, lo yave bekal Hashem. You can't marry into Klal Yisrael, and that's a lav. So if so, there's a lav over here for any of the brothers to do yibum for this sris, that is to do yibum. Again, one of the brothers, if he is a sris, he can't do yibum for this woman because he's a krus shavcha, he's a petzua daka, he can't have any children. So how could they do the mitzvah of yibum here? If there's a chi of lav, so there's no mitzvah of yibum, so what happens? The isser of eshes ach actually comes back. So now it's actually going to be a chi of kares. So what's going on in the Mishnah here? So the Gemara answers, what are we speaking about over here? That this person that's a sris and is also to marry into Klal Yisrael, but his brother married a giyaris, and this sris is not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, but he's allowed to marry a giyaris. So this person's wife, his brother's wife that is, was a giyaris, and that's why there's no lav here. And Rabbi Akiva saw like Rabbi Yaisi. Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Yaisi. The Amar kahal geidim lo yikri kol. Geidim are not included in the expression of kahal that the Torah says. So the Torah says that a petzua daka can't marry into kahal, lo yavi bekahal, but he could marry a giyaris, and that's the case of our Mishnah. Frek the Gemara, so yachi, if that's the case here, yivumi nami miyavim. So there should be yibum as well. So why does the Mishnah say that you could do chalitza, could do yibum as well? Says the Gemara, enachanami, you're right. According to Rabbi Akiva, so in this case of a sris adam, you could do chalitza, you could do yibum as well with this giyaris. So why does he use the term chalitza in the Mishnah? Because Rabbi Yeshua used the term chayletz, so Amariyu nami chayletz. He also uses the term chayletz. But really it means yibum as well. Deikanami, I'll prove this to you, Diktani, because that's what it says in the Seif of the Mishnah. What does it say there? Hey, Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseir al ben Megusas Shahayi b'Yerushalayim. He testified regarding this individual ben Megusas that was a sris in Yerushalayim, and he was a sris Adam. And the yibmu es ishtay. And they did yibum for his wife. L'kayim divrei Rabbi Akiva, fulfilling Rabbi Akiva's opinion. So over here it clearly says that it's not only chalitza, but yibum as well. Shma mina, that proves this pshat in the Mishnah. That when it says chalitza, it also means yibum.
Over there by Ben Megusas?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. That's the name was Mizogan. Mastav Rabba, so Rabba asks a question on this pshat. He brings a braise where you clearly see that it's not talking dafka about a case of Gatus. Petzua daka, krus shavcha. So the braise says you have a petzua daka and a krus shavcha that can't have children, and they're also to come into Klal Yisrael. Or a sris adam. Also, another variation of someone that's included in the halacha of a petzua daka, he can't have children. Or va'azakin, person that's older and he can't have children. So the halacha, the Braisa says is, oy chaltzen, oy meyabmen. You could do either chalitza or yibum. Keitzad, so how does this apply? Mesu, if any of these people died, v'lahem noshim v'lahem achen, and they had wives, and they had brothers, and they had no children. V'amdu achin, and any of the brothers got up, v'asu maimer, and did maimer b'neshesei, and maimer is the kedushin midrabanan for a woman that's a yevama. So I did maimer, and that maimer only takes effect midrabanan. V'nosnu get, and then they give a get. Oisha chaltzu, or they did chalitze to the wife of any of these individuals. Mashasu asu, what they did takes effect, because these people you're able to do chalitze for them, and you're able to do maimer, which is a kedusha midrabanan. Now v'im baalu, if any of the brothers went and were bail, they went and did the mitzvah of yibum. Now, to be bail, to do the mitzvah of yibum, so l'chatchili you're not supposed to, because at least not benegay to the case of psudaka, krus shavcha, and the sris adam. The zaken is not a problem, but benegay to those that can't have children, so because it's a lav, l'chatchili you shouldn't go and do yibum. But if they did go and do yibum, kanu, it takes effect, because it's only a issa of a lav and it will take effect. Meisu achin. Now, if what happened was not that any of these people, whether up to a daka, whether a sris, they passed away, but on the other hand, on the other way, now the brothers of any of these people passed away. Now, any of these individuals, whether up to a daka or a sris, they got up and did maimer in the wives of their brothers that passed away. And v'nosnu get, and they gave a get, or choltzu, or they did chalitze. So mashasu also, what they did takes effect. V'im ba'alu b'diavad, if they went and they were bail the wife of any of these people, of the B'tzua Daka and so on, so then kanu, it takes effect. But then the Braisa concludes v'asa l'kaiman. Even if it took effect, the yibum took effect, b'diavad it takes effect, because like I said, it's only a issa lav, but he's still not allowed to continue living with them. Mishum shenem l'yovi B'tzua Daka krus shavcha b'kal Hashem. Because the pasuk says that you're not allowed to live with a B'tzua Daka or krus shavcha. So when you did it the first time, so that was the mitzvah of yibum, so the yibum took effect. But you can't continue living with this person that's a B'tzua Daka or krus shavcha will not be allowed to continue living with this wife because it's a lav. So what do we see from this? So first of all, before I go weiter, this Braisa goes according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. How do we know that this Braisa is according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva? Because the Braisa says sris adam, that a sris adam chalitza takes effect. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer says by sris adam there's no chalitza. Adarab, he said only by sris chama there's chalitza, right? That's what it said in the Mishnah. So we know that this Braisa is Rabbi Akiva. And now the Gemara says alma bekal askinon. We're speaking over here of a person, of a sris adam, or a krus shavcha, or a B'tzua Daka that's marrying his brother's wife, which is not a giyaitis. How do we know that she's not a giyaitis? Because the Braisa concludes and says that if he was miyavim her, he can't continue living with her. If it was talking about a giyaitis, why not? He can continue living with her. It's allowed. So we're talking about b'kol askinon. So if so, the question comes back: how is there a mitzvah of yibum or chalitza in the first place here? According to Rabbi Akiva, since there's an issa lav over here, so that issa lav is equivalent to issa kares. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion, and therefore there should be no mitzvah of yibum or chalitza at all. That's the question. Elama Rabba, so therefore Rabbi says, the case in our Mishnah is different. The case over here is that by the time when this woman fell for chalitza or yibum, he was not yet a sris. He was able to have children, and only later he got injured, he got wounded, and then he became a sris. So the zika, the connection, the mitzvah of yibum and chalitza already took effect, and once it took effect, so now that mitzvah stays in place. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye asks on this. But still, v'leisi iser petzua v'nitchi eser de yibum. Let the iser now that he became a petzua daka, and now there's a iser, there's a lav, so let that be deiche the eser of yibum. Right now you have the eser of yibum, which already took effect, and you have the lav of petzua daka. So let the eser of let the iser of petzua daka, that is, be deiche the eser of yibum. Where do you see such a thing? Milay Tnan, didn't we learn in a Mishnah? It says before, Rabbi Gamliel said, in miyanav lav tamtna chetagl v'teitze. So what is this talking about? This is talking about two brothers that are married to two sisters. Right? And then, but one brother is married to a sister, which is a gedayla, and that's a full marriage minat Torah. And then the second brother is married to a sister, which was a ketana, and that's only a marriage midrabanan. The brother that was married to the Gedayla passed away. And now this wife fell for Yibum for this other brother that's married to a sister, which is a Ketana. So what do you do over here? So this marriage is only a marriage midrabanan to this Ketana. So minat Teire, it's not his wife b'chlal. So minat Teire, there's a mitzvah of Yibum here. But midrabanan, there's a problem. Midrabanan, this is achais ishta. He's already married to his sister. So midrabanan, there's no mitzvah of Yibum. So Rabbi Gamliel says what you do is im miyana, if this girl, which is a ketana, she's memayin, she decides that when she becomes a gedayla that she doesn't want to be married, so that uproots the whole marriage retroactively. Miyana, so then it's uprooted, and then now you can do Yibum for the other sister. Vim lav, and if not, tamtin at shetagdil v'teitze. So you're gonna have to wait until she gets older. And now, once she gets older and she's not going to be memayin, that's going to become your wife, the brother's wife. And now, v'teitze halazu mishum achaisisha. And now the Yevamos that was waiting here and could not do Yibum because this is his wife, this is his sister that's married to the brother. So she's waiting. But now, if the brother is going to get fully married now to this wife, not just a marriage midrabanan, so now the sister will not have to do Yibum at all because it's a chayis ishtay and there's no Yibum whatsoever. So what do you see from this? Alme, we see from this case, Isser achayis, that Asi Isser achayis isha, the Isser of achayis isha comes and vidachi, and it pushes off the mitzvah of Yibum. Even though the mitzvah of Yibum already took effect before, but nevertheless, if now his sister, if you wait until she becomes a gedayla, and now she becomes this person's full wife, the brother's full wife afterwards, it pushes off the mitzvah of Yibum. So Al-Hanami over here as well, even though the mitzvah of Yibum already took effect before, Neisi Isser Patsua, but if afterwards he became a Patsua Daka, let this Isser Patsua Daka now come Vinitchi, and let it push off the mitzvah of Yibum. So that's not a good answer. Rav Yosef says another answer. Hi Tana, going back to the original question of our Mishnah. How is there a mitzvah of Yibum according to Rabbi Akiva if this is a Patsua Daka, and for a lav, which is equivalent to Kodesh, there's no mitzvah of Yibum? So the Gemara answers no. Hi Tana, the Tana of our Mishnah, Hach Tana de Rabbi Akiva. He goes according to the following Tana that says, according to Rabbi Akiva, the Oma mechayve lavin de she'er, when there's a chi of lav, which is a lav because of a relationship that there is, those chiyuvei erve, which are a lav, but the erve is based on a certain relationship, have a mamzer. So then a child born from such a relationship, the child will be a mamzer. Michayve lavin gredi, but just a chi of lav, which is not at all connected to a relationship that's because of cousins, or that there's a relationship between two people, then lo yav a mamzer. There's no issur of a mamzer at all over here. The child is not a mamzer. So what's the Gemara saying over here? What are we talking about? Petsua Daka. The lav of Petsua Daka is not a lav of She'er. The Gemara before brought this benegeh to the lav of Machze Grushasai. When a person returns his Grusha, it's not a lav that's related to any relationship. It's just a lav of Machze Grushasai. Will Rabbi Akiva hold over there that the child born is a mamzer? So according to this Tana, no. So the same thing over here by the Petsua Daka. This is a lav which is not connected to she'er, to a relationship that there is with relatives. So therefore, the child is not a mamzer, and therefore it's not equivalent to chiv kodesh. So there's a mitzvah of yibum over here. Now the Gemara has another question on this whole thing. Frek the Gemara ikri kan lahakim laachiv shem. What's the Gemara saying? How could Rabbi Akiva hold that a Siris Adam there should be a mitzvah of Yibum? The whole point of the mitzvah of Yibum is that you're going to give birth for the children for your brother. They have to make a name for your brother. But over here, V'hailav bar hachihu. But this person right now he can't have any children. So how are you going to make a name for your brother? What's the point of the mitzvah of Yibum here? There should be no mitzvah. Amar Rave, so Rave said, based on your question, apply that back to a person that he himself is a Siris and he's married to a wife, right? And we said a person that's a sris, there's no mitzvah of yibum. So now im kain ein locha isha sheksheira liyavam. It's going to come out that there'll never be a woman that should be kosher to do yibum for her. Why? Shalinasa baila sris chama sha'achas kaidim limisasai. Every person he passes away without children, even if he was a person that was able to have children, But a moment before he passed away, or a while before he passed away, what happens before a person passes away? He becomes so weak that he can't have children anymore. So it comes out that every person that passes away without children, you could look at him and say that this is a person that was able to have children, but then a while before he passed away, he became a sris. Now he couldn't have children anymore. And therefore, nobody should be fit to doing the mitzvah of Yibum at all. Elamai, what does this prove? If you're a person that before there was a shas HaKosher that you were able to have children, even though now, before you pass away, you can't have children anymore, but because l'chatchila you were fit to have children, there is a mitzvah of Yibum. So the same thing also regarding a sris doing Yibum or Chalitza, because he was fit to have children before, the mitzvah of Yibum or Chalitza takes effect over here. Says the Gemara le Rabbi Eliezer. So now according to Rabbi Eliezer, Piruka de Rava, this answer that Rava just gave to explain Rabbi Akiva's opinion, Pirchehi, it's a question of Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Rabbi Akiva said there's a difference between a sris that was once able to have children and a sris that was not able to have children. And he's proving it to you. He's telling you every person that passes away without children is the same thing. He was able to have children before, and then before he passed away, he got weak enough that he was not able to have children. So it's always that way. And the mitzvah of Yibum still applies. So how could Rabbi Eliezer argue with this point? Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah said that makes no difference. Rabbi Eliezer says what makes a difference is he able to be healed or not? So how could Rabbi Eliezer argue with this? Answers the Gemara, no, he disagrees because Hasam kichishusa the aschila bey. That a person that passes away without children, he's not called a sris at all. You can't say that every person that passes away, because before he passes away he becomes weak and he can't have children, so therefore every person is like a sris adam. It's like he became a sris before he passed away. He didn't become a sris, he just became weak. It's the beginning of the process of him passing away, but he wasn't a sris at all. But in the case where a person actually became a sris before he passed away, there Rabbi Eliezer says it doesn't matter that he was once fit to have children before, there'll be no mitzvah of Yibum at all.